Good morning. It's Father's Day, and so I'm thinking about fathers and other issues. My son Raymond is promised to come and do a video one of these days when he's got the time, because he's very busy. And so today I'm just going to talk about, well, Doc, I didn't put Doc on here, even though it is Father's Day, because I just had to go on with this policy of not letting him. Too many times he's taken me by surprise and sort of said what he wanted to say, even in opposition what I was trying to say on my own video. So I've told him, just say what you want to say on your own videos. But too many times he's gone contrary to my message, or tried to equal his own opposition. And I would say that Doc sort of substituted every other addiction with just alcohol. He didn't smoke, he quit smoking. And for quite a while there was kind of a sexual addiction, which gradually diminished and was, I think, sort of a revenge tactic from the treatment he received from his first wife, that he always thought was so damaging to his ego, to his sense of worth. So I felt bad about that, and I've continued to associate with Doc and enjoy it. I will do so as long as it's possible. But I just decided that I would do the video alone rather than have him sitting there, not really being involved, and then coming forth with some big infuriating behavior of some sort. So, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have his virtues, and it's always surprising to me. But that's, I think, because he retained some of the civility and, well, he had a good upbringing, and he still retains those manners and way of treating people that I can deal with. And he still has the intelligence, even though it's been damaged by his addiction. It was a remarkable intelligence, but as you probably can tell just from the way he talks, his vocabulary, his understanding, his taste, his interest, his love of music, and so it's not that he is totally without redeeming qualities. He's still got some, and I build on those. All you have to reach for with an alcoholic. And you don't have to talk to the man in there. You have to deal with that man, impaired as he might be, because that's the basis of reform, if there's going to be any. Maybe there won't be before death. So anyway, that's on my mind. And then I was thinking of another one because of what's been going on in Arizona. Arizona, of course, has opposing viewpoints to the Democrats and Obama and the paper regularly talks about this, of how the radicals or the extremists in Arizona are ruining it for other purposes. They're not going to, this is not going to be a state that attracts business with, and I'm saying for one, I am a person who thinks that violence, any kind of violence that is tied to any kind of solution has to be acknowledged as violence. And the Republicans have been tied to warmongering, wanting to go to war over everything, not recognizing the cost of war and the fact that people should be leaving war behind. And mainly we're answering to the ravages of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and to our soldiers who, some of them have had to be deployed 6 or 7 times, young fathers, and they're coming home horribly wounded, horribly. You know, when we think about war, we should think about the cost that is going to be there in our high-powered age of machinery. The weapons are going to be so sophisticated, so damaging, that our soldiers are going to suffer accordingly. So I think that everyone who thinks war should be the solution, and they probably don't have to fight these wars. They don't have to get wounded. They don't have to pay a huge price. And there's another policy of violence that the Democratic Party has tied itself to, and that's legalized abortion. And they have not acknowledged that this is a violent solution. It can't be accomplished without bloodshed and death. So and just the other day we saw in Minnesota a young woman defending women, saying that women's right to choose what to do with their own body. Well, this was printed by the press, a picture of this woman, and trying to make out like Minnesota was violating women again with their war on women. But women don't like to hear there's been a war on the fetus for 40 years. A war on the fetus. And the mother is the prime person to protect the fetus. So it's all according to the spin. And the Democratic Party, which has tried to maintain that they were not the war parties, they didn't like war, have tied themselves to the war on the fetus and tried to defend it, and I would say that because they are defending it, and they're not admitting that this reflects our society. Having a sexual addiction myself, from having been molested and taught and introduced to sex at a very young age. I was just a little 5-year-old when this started. So, and this developed into a sexual addiction that I had, but I was able to partially control it by reading history. I was just frantic to read, and try to get some solution to the horrible problems. My mother and dad were both extremely addicted to sexual excess. My mother had started in this direction when she married my dad, and due to what he was doing, she eventually developed, and there I had 2 parents who were just having affairs all over the place. My dad had them early, but my mother couldn't, as many women couldn't in those times, she couldn't put together a picture of him being into homosexual activities. She just couldn't grasp that. And as a child, I wasn't going to tell her, well, she believed me, or if she did believe me, something terrible could happen. It was just something that I could not actually tell somebody. I just kept it to myself, and I studied books. I studied wherever I went to try to figure out what could control your sexual behavior. It was so out of control in my own family. And there were 5 girls, and they were bound to be influenced by some of this sexual excess. My mother was a talented woman, attractive woman, but she was having constant affairs outside the marriage, as my dad had had, as far as I'm concerned, before she started. And she didn't start until she had a tubal ligation and could no longer get pregnant, because I think she was afraid that she might have a baby that wasn't my dad's, and he would kill her, because he had a temper and a violence in him that would be triggered off if he was too tried, got too angry. But one of the biggest sources that I went to was the history of religion, and to my own, the Mormon religion that I was born into. I saw for myself with my own eyes that many Mormon girls went through all of their dating, their high school years, still a virgin. And that was because that was promoted, highly promoted. They wanted young girls to get married and experience sexual activity for the first time completely, where a baby could be involved. In the temple, they wanted to get married in the temple. They wanted to be a sacred union. Well, sometimes, of course, there were slips. There was, it didn't always work perfectly, but in college, I saw that all the young Mormon girls, they were doing well. They were having a great time because they weren't worried. And all the ones that were having affairs were very worried about pregnancy, and what would they do. And it was a big difference. And I thought, if I have one more thing to worry about besides what I've already got, I'll probably just crack. So I followed along the Mormon line, and I was going with a boy who was willing to respect that. He was Mormon, and he'd been taught to do that. Even though he was drinking, he still would stop short. He wouldn't force anything, and if he hadn't done, I wouldn't been still with him. So after I was all done with college, I was ready, and I was still a virgin when I got married. So I saw that this worked, and I read very widely, like in Catholic history. Well, the nuns started offering refuge to women because women were dying so young in childbirth. They would offer a place where even a whole family would come and take the vow of abstinence. If the father was able to do it, he would take the vow of abstinence so that there would be no more children, because his health was so poor. And but the vow of abstinence, it had been taken with monks, with priests, and it was taken with nuns, and it was taken with women who would come to the nunneries for refuge. And I thought, boy, that abstinence, that's a very powerful way of controlling your life, so you don't get into all kinds of trouble and have to worry about unwanted children. And you control it yourself by your connection to, it will help you, connection to prayer, and these nunneries were formed, to help the poor, to serve mankind. And then this is not to say that the Catholic Church didn't do other things that are very disturbing, like trials for heresy. There's black marks in their history. There's black marks in the Mormon history, their history of polygamy, and I just don't think there's a worse. But they got through that, and their strengths are not to be denied. The Mormon Word of Wisdom has kept a lot of young men sober not smoking. And nowadays, when we have such ravages, when people are living longer, smoking is just taking a terrible toll, terrible, of both men and women. Well, it was recognized that tobacco was bad back then. And the word of wisdom included tobacco as well as alcohol. So that word of wisdom is an extremely impressive part of this religion. So what we have to do is be able to recognize, and I think the liberal media has got itself bound up into the defense of women's right and right to choose, and not recognizing that they're defending a violent solution. And anytime you have a violent solution, you've got something that needs to be looked at again and again, and support needs to come for finding other solutions, finding ways to the strength to control. And of course, people who don't have control and who have heavy sexual addictions just scorn the idea of control. But they don't see that the idea of control has been implemented, say. It was implemented in the Mormon religion, and the whole church has gathered to help people keep the word of wisdom, keep the vow of chastity or abstinence until they marry. So we have to learn from everybody. We have to admit when somebody has come up, or a church or an institution has come up with something very strong. The Democratic Party passed civil rights bill in the face of long-time prejudice and opposition, but they did it. They have to this day established themselves as a powerful party at that time that did the right thing for the people. And Obama is talking about giving the children of illegals a break, which I think is right. But we have to be very careful about giving amnesty to, as it once was done, amnesty to everybody, and then the whole thing's just started all over again. I lived for 20 years on the west side, right in the middle of a Mexican community, and I found out that illegals come, they flood Mexican communities, poor Mexican communities. Every unattached woman had an illegal living with her, or an illegal boyfriend, or had a number of illegals. And a lot of these illegals were drank alcohol, were involved in trying to sell drugs, and they didn't all want to go work out in the fields and pull onions. I met those too, but a lot of them wanted to get into the drug trade. It was more glamorous, and you got to carry guns, and you got to shoot people. Believe me, that was like a war out there. And do you think reporters came and got a new? No. You were on the inside living there of that war. You were looking out while bullets were flying all around the neighborhood. And I thought, this will never calm down until there are less illegals. And at that time, which was 13 years ago, it was just maximum illegals. And it eventually got to a higher peak than that, the flow of illegals into United States. So, but in the paper, you'll find a tender sort of not really recognizing attitude toward those poor people down in Mexico. They're trying to find a better life. Well, along with, there came a lot of illegals who drove drunk, didn't have insurance, all kinds of ways that they broke the law. And I know this one guy who had walked here 12 times. And he was deported while I knew him, and he was back. And he said he would keep coming back. He would, as fast as he could walk. And so I'm saying that when the Democrats try to say, well, the Republicans don't have any compassion, they don't have, well, I think they should have compassion for the children, the innocent children who were brought here by their parents and had no choice, but the parents did. And the criminals need to be deported. And they're oh boy, I'm telling you. So you have to look at the whole situation and decide from there. But if President Obama said it's the right thing to do to give the children a break, and I think that's right. Even though those in opposition might scream and holler, say nasty things, unkind things, uncharitable, he still has to insist that these children do not be penalized and deported to a country they might not even know anything about. But he has specifications on what these children of immigrants have to be, and they can't be criminals. So I'm for that. So I think that we have to think about every issue and what is proposed to solve it, and not let ourselves be with our minds closed because they're Democrats or they're Republicans or they're this or they're that. And that goes for both sides, because with legalized abortion, there was a lot of ear closing, a lot of refusal to face the illogic of such thinking, the illogic of not recognizing it as a violent solution. That have we come to that? Have we come with our modern inventions to having to kill millions of fetus all over the world? Is that progress? That's what we have to think about. So, thanks to you for listening and watching, and I will see you again. Thank you. Bye.